The worst-case scenario of famine is playing out in Gaza. That's the view of the UN-backed Global Hunger Monitor, the IPC. The most recent report found that starvation, malnutrition and disease are driving a rise in hunger-related deaths. And still, Israel insists there is enough food in Gaza for everyone. Hello and welcome to Roundtable. I'm Enda Brady. Children dying from starvation, the hungry being shot and killed at food distribution centres. Gaza is in the grip of a man-made famine, and starvation is rife after months of Israel blocking vital supplies and waging relentless attacks. International pressure is mounting on Benjamin Netanyahu to allow aid in, but is it too little, too late?
The hunger in Gaza is palpable. Emaciated bodies of starving children have shocked the world. In the last few days, Israel has implemented tactical pauses in military operations in some parts of Gaza to allow aid to be distributed across the territory. It follows international condemnation and a strong statement from Britain, France and Germany calling for Israel to lift restrictions on the flow of aid.
This is not just a humanitarian crisis, it's a moral crisis that challenges the global conscience. We will continue to speak out at every opportunity, but words don't feed hungry children.
Even President Donald Trump has now recognised the dire situation in Gaza.
We're going to be getting some good, strong food. We can save a lot of people. I mean, some of those kids that's real starvation stuff. I see it. And you can't fake that.
His ally, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, denies all claims of famine and starvation.
Israel is presented as though we are applying a campaign of starvation in Gaza. What a bold-faced lie.
Israel says it has allowed aid in via the controversial Israeli and US-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. The UN says over 1,000 people have been killed by Israeli soldiers while trying to get the aid. This week, airdrops of basic food have been coordinated by Jordan and the UAE. Some lorries carrying aid have been allowed to enter, leading to chaotic scenes. After mounting pressure, the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced it will formally recognise the state of Palestine this September, unless Israel abides by a ceasefire and commits to a two-state solution. With some aid slowly trickling into the Gaza Strip, is it enough to prevent people starving to death?
Well, let's meet our guests. Joining us on the programme today, we have Dr. Nick Maynard. He's a British surgeon who just got back from Gaza last week. From Gaza, we have Eyad Amawi. He is director of the Gaza Relief Committee and he is in the area of Deir al-Balah. And from Washington, D.C., we have Alexandra Saieh. She's the head of Humanitarian Policy and Advocacy. That's at Save the Children. And here with me in the studio, we have James Smith, an emergency doctor who has worked in Gaza. And also in the studio with me, we have the journalist Nigel Nelson, political commentator and former political editor of the Sunday Mirror. You're all very welcome to this roundtable. Dr. Nick, I appreciate we've only got you for a few minutes. You're very, very busy today. What we're seeing is man-made, live-streamed. The world is witnessing a famine. Just give us your thoughts on what you've seen in Gaza.
Thank you for inviting me on today. Well, I'd agree with what you said. This is a man-made, a forced starvation, which is leading to a humanitarian catastrophe. Even that is an understatement. The malnutrition that we are seeing in Gaza is indescribably terrible. There are patients dying every day. I've seen patients dying every day, ranging from newborn babies who are dying of malnutrition, children, many adults, those who have had serious injuries and have been unable to heal following those injuries, following our surgery. So the malnutrition is extreme now and will lead to many more deaths. And this needs to be, we need to get urgent food. We need to get urgent aid into Gaza.
And Dr. Maynard, can I ask, when you hear people like Netanyahu saying that there's plenty of food in Gaza, that there is no famine, there is no starvation. How angry does that make you feel?
Extremely angry. I mean, it is an out-and-out lie. We've heard many of these lies coming from the Israeli government over the last 22 months, and it's in many ways profoundly disappointing that our media and everyone actually gives airing to these lies, because no one believes what they say. There is no credibility attached to these statements, and it is distracting from the immense humanitarian tragedies that are going on in Gaza at the moment. So yes, it makes me extremely angry.
And Dr. Maynard, just one final question to you before we let you go back to your work. In all your medical years, did you ever think that in July 2025 you will be seeing children dying from starvation in this world?
No, I wouldn't have dreamt it in a million years. And I've seen this every trip I've been to Gaza. I was in Gaza over a year ago with James, one of your other guests, and we saw the beginnings of malnutrition there. I saw it again when I was out there last summer, and it is now catastrophically worse. We've been calling this out for well over a year now. And yes, the world maybe has woken up now, but it's taken far too long for people to listen to the evidence that's been given to them repeatedly for over 18 months. The humanitarian catastrophe, the forced starvation induced entirely by the Israelis withholding aid and withholding food, is now causing many, many hundreds, if not thousands, of deaths.
Dr. Maynard, thank you. Well, let's go to Gaza and bring in Eyad. Eyad, what we're seeing on our TV screens, you are living through starvation being used as a weapon.
Yeah, thank you for hosting me. And the talk about the famine is past more than the statements. Look, we didn't read about the famine in the old books or the history. We now living in it. So when I see the ribs for the children showing and the catastrophe worsen more and more, really we have no time to stay waiting the new promises and statements from the politicals that will let the trucks come in and airdrops will let the foods enter in the Gaza by the sky. The solution is very easy, my colleague. The solution is remove the Israeli restriction over the hundreds and hundreds of trucks and entering it without any obstacles or any struggles from the Israeli side. And this is the easiest solution that can break the famine. Look, from the last March until this period, the famine indications is doubled multiple times. In our records, we registered more than 5,200 children who have suffering at the high level of suffering from the famine and malnutrition, acute malnutrition. So in my expectation, we will lose their souls rapidly. And this is the deterioration in the situations. I don't expect it will stop after the political statements for the past 48 hours.
Thank you, Eyad. I want to bring Alex in. Thank you, Eyad. Alex, what needs to happen immediately to get food in to stop people dying every hour in Gaza?
Humanitarian organizations have made it clear what needs to happen. We need to see the opening of all of the land crossings. We need to see, at minimum, 600 trucks of aid and commercial supplies entering every single day. And we need to see an end to the bombing. We need a ceasefire. Ultimately, only a ceasefire will even make a dent in helping us reverse the conditions on the ground in Gaza right now. And humanitarian organizations, human rights organizations, everyone has been calling for this from the very beginning. What we need to see is for governments and states to use their diplomatic leverage to ensure that Israel lifts the blockade and allow unlimited supplies to enter Gaza. Even distributing aid within Gaza, once it's entered, is impossible under the current conditions.
Thank you, Alex. Dr. James, to you. you've worked in Gaza. I've found it very difficult looking at social media over the last few weeks and months. It's getting worse. Nobody can say they did not know.
No, absolutely. I mean, I've met several politicians over the course of the last 2 years. We've done all sorts of media and political engagement. And what is very clear in every single meeting that I attend, it is not for a lack of understanding. It's not for a lack of information. Just last week, I was meeting a high-level diplomat in Paris. We showed them photos of the patients we'd treated, the destruction of the health infrastructure in Gaza, the conditions that Palestinians have been subjected to, and nothing that we put before her was news. There was nothing that was surprising. We're now talking about starvation and famine. The time it takes to starve someone who was previously physiologically healthy is weeks, if not months. This is not simply the culmination of Israeli aggression, of Israeli manufactured scarcity. This is all of those things and collective indifference and apathy from a so-called international community that has watched this happen. This is, in the words of Amnesty International, a live-streamed genocide that we have watched and that we have done nothing in the face of for more than 21 months now.
Thank you, James. Nigel, talking of the international community, we're finally seeing movement from the UK, France and Germany joined up, talking about recognising the Palestinian statehood. How quickly do you think we might see some movement that will help feed Palestinians, never mind statehood?
Well, it's two-pronged, basically, because Keir Starmer, France and Germany, they're working on a ceasefire plan. We don't know what it is. We know he's told President Trump about it. We don't know President Trump's reaction to it. So at least they're trying to get the ceasefire so we can get some aid in. The second thing, which is politically more difficult, is recognising Palestine as a state. When it comes down to the timescale, the obvious timescale would be the UN General Assembly in September. That's when France will declare their support for a Palestinian state. It's largely symbolic, but it's not unimportant that we've got skin in the game historically because of the Palestinian mandate, and obviously both Britain and France are members of the Security Council.
Thank you, Nigel. Back to Gaza. Eyad, to you, we've seen on our TV screens some of the airdrops, countries like Jordan and Egypt sending aid, but it's tiny. It's absolutely tiny what comes out of an airplane compared to what can be driven in trucks. And there are lines of trucks waiting to get into Gaza being blocked by Israel.
Look, the airdrops, it's inefficient. From my observation here, it's maybe we will face a dangerous process because it's a limited amount of foods that can done by the airdrops. And all of our people displaced after the repeated orders of expulsion and shrink the available area for living here just for 30 square kilometers. And I don't know how the airdrops will be accurate and will be safe. Before 24 hours, I know some tents that face the airdrops packages falling over the tents and multiple of casualties. So it's not non-efficient and will not break the famine quickly, because also the capacity of the airdrops is just maybe half of the capacity of every one trucks, just 25 tons for every airdrops action. But the trucks at every one, it can carry more than 40 tons. So it's very simple to recognize the best solutions is the convoys, continuity, sustainability, and categorization, saving categorization for the multiple types of foods. It's not flour just to eat. Most of us have one meal, if it's available, and without any protein, without vegetables. So most of us will suffering from acute malnutrition. So the airdrops, it's not a solution. It's just not more the media campaign to reduce the international pressure over the politicians in the world.
Thank you, Eyad. Let's come back to Alex on that. Alex, give us your view on the airdrops we've seen. I mean, it comes to something when Netanyahu's Israel actually decided to drop some food into Gaza.
Look, we've been really clear that the airdrops are a deadly distraction. Dropping energy bars and dried pasta from the sky is not what's going to bring children who are suffering from acute malnutrition back from the brink. Our clinics have seen a tenfold increase in acute malnutrition amongst children over the past 4 months. These children need medical intervention in order to survive. If these airdrops become the quote unquote solution that the international community puts forward, children will continue to die of malnutrition. Adults will die of malnutrition. It is absolutely not the answer. We have teams on the ground who are trusted by the community, who know how to do this, and we can if we are allowed to. The land crossings are the established and best, safest, and most effective route. But again, we need safety. And the government of Israel has not guaranteed safety for a long time. And we continue to see aid workers as well as people who are seeking food attacked just trying to get aid.
Thank you, Alex. Dr. James, to you. I turned on TV the other day and Bob Geldof was talking about this. Where's he been for the last 22 months?
Well, where have a lot of people been in the last 22 months? There is something that, of course, feels extremely disingenuous. There is this sense that a threshold in the eyes of the liberal West has been reached now, that a red line has been crossed. We've heard this language of red lines and thresholds and points that we, a point from which there is no return. We've heard this language thrown around a lot in the last 22 months and longer, and yet none of that really has changed anything. There have been a lot of people who have chosen to remain silent or who have silenced others over the course of this period. Now, of course, it's good that we have reached a point that there is this wider political mobilization. But we must question where people have been and how genuine their commentary is at this moment in time. Are we saying that it took children starving before our eyes for us to say, we can't support Israel's actions any longer? There is a long line, really, of the most egregious statistics that we could quote that describe the depths of Israel's violence. More UN workers that have been killed in the last 21 months than in the 79-year history of the United Nations. Plausible genocide as early as the 26th of January 2024. All of these things have been very well established, and yet it took until now, it took reaching these depths, really, this level of depravity before a significant number of powerful and influential people the world over said, enough is enough now.
Thank you, James. Nigel, tell me if I'm wrong here, but has there been a shift in the UK media coverage in the last week? I'm seeing front pages of newspapers with starving children, the kind of images we saw in Ethiopia in 1985. Suddenly, these are now sparking a public debate here, and people are very much aware that something needs to change.
Yes, I think that's absolutely true. And they've appeared on papers you wouldn't expect. They're papers that were previously supporting Israel. And suddenly, as you say, they've put starving children on the front page and are basically saying something must be done. I think one of the problems that James is talking about, why it's not got more attention, is we cannot get foreign correspondents into Gaza. Israel refuses to allow international journalists there. TRT has got someone there, they've been there, I think, from the beginning.
Every day.
But as far as journalists, certainly from this country, they can't get there. If they were able to get there, I think what is happening now would have happened sooner because they could have seen it. And so there hasn't been the independent verification that journalists could have given it.
And Nigel, I read something last week from AFP, Agence France Presse, a very respected news organisation. I could not believe they are looking at taking their journalists out of Gaza because they risk starving to death.
Well, there's an example. I mean, there is obviously a huge risk of being there, a risk of being killed in military action, but also now to find that journalists would actually starve if they stayed there and have to come out, just so shows how appalling it is. Had the Israelis allowed journalists in from the beginning, we would be in a different situation now.
Thanks, Nigel. Well, let's go back to Gaza. Eyad, do you think this was always Netanyahu's plan to ethnically cleanse Gaza and use starvation as a weapon?
Of course, I absolutely agree with you. The more horrible things that Netanyahu and the occupation planned for a long time, they need to create the detention town in Rafah. After they completely reshaping Gaza demographically, physically, and geographically, everything here is completely destroyed. The infrastructure, the lifestyle, everything. So they push our people and forced us to be expelled, flee from our homes, and shrink us in the coastal area, as I mentioned. After that, they mentioned by their lies, they will feed our peoples and feed us. So it's not acceptable for the international humanitarian law to do something like that with all of the world observations.
Thanks, Eyad. Alex, to you, talk to me about this Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. There doesn't seem to be much humanity in what they're doing.
There's nothing humanitarian about the so-called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which has been backed by the Israeli government. Look, the distribution sites that they set up have proven to be deadly. There's no question about that. We've all seen the videos on our screens, and they have turned seeking food, seeking aid into survival of the fittest, where people are competing and racing just to feed their families and having to face the impossible choice between gunfire and starvation. This is not a humanitarian response. Humanitarian organizations who have been in Gaza for decades know how to do this. We have the trust of the community, and we deliver aid closest to where people actually are. How can you expect a starved mother, an injured child to run to these sites? It's just absolutely impossible. And we have called for the resumption of the UN-led aid mechanism and for food and all other essential items to be allowed in through the UN.
So, Alex, just tell me, how can that aid be best delivered to Gaza right now?
Well, we need to see an opening of the crossing points, and we need all UN and humanitarian organizations, including UNRWA, to be allowed to operate and deliver aid freely. Look, we have an office in Deir al-Balah. We have clinics in other parts of Gaza. Other humanitarian organizations have premises in other parts of Gaza. We are there, and we work with community leaders to identify people who are most in need. Right now, everybody in Gaza is in need, even people who had the resources previously. Now, all of those resources are absolutely depleted. Children don't have any coping mechanisms left. We are seeing children, comb through trash to find something to eat. This is not going to be solved by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. These children need trained experts, people who have the medical experience as well, to be able to treat them.
Thank you, Alex. James, final point to you. In Irish history, we had a famine in the 1840s that initially started out as a crop failure. This is man-made. This is a politician who has decided to starve these people.
I mean, famine is always man-made. And just in the way that Britain was complicit during the famine in Ireland, Britain is again complicit. There is no situation in the world in which famine is not man-made. Certainly in 2025, when food is available, in some cases a matter of 100 meters or so away from where individuals are starving to death in Gaza. This is, I mean, man-made is one thing, but this is perverse and barbaric, almost beyond comprehension. I mean, we are literally dealing with situations where in some cases individuals are starving within view of where the trucks and so on are parked, and they can't be reached because Israel has created a situation that is so profoundly insecure that they can't access the pallets and the trucks. The one thing I really want to emphasize, and I have the utmost respect for humanitarian organizations and Palestinian civil society groups that are working under these conditions, but there are no humanitarian solutions to what is happening here in Gaza, only political solutions. And that is something that has been said about previous genocides in history and absolutely must be affirmed and reaffirmed with respect to what's being allowed to happen in Gaza right now.
Thanks, James. Nigel, final point to you. On that point then about the politicians, what do you think Starmer can do that will have an impact? Because Netanyahu listens to nobody.
Yes, and that's what I meant about it being symbolic to actually recognise Palestine as a state. What it would do, though, it would put pressure on the Israeli settlements. It would pave the way for UN membership. At the moment, Palestine has only got observer status. We'd be joining the other 147 countries which already recognise Palestine. It's not such a huge leap. It's been long-standing British foreign policy for a two-state solution. Time to recognise one of those states.
Nigel and James, thank you both so much here in the studio, and Alex and Eyad in Gaza. Remember, you can see more discussion and debate on our YouTube channel. Just search for Roundtable TRT World. But for now, from me, Enda Brady, and all the team here, goodbye and thank you for watching.